Hey guys, Art 17 here, approaching the end of the semester, and we're talking about week 15 now, and assignment 26 and 27, which could be combined. 26 moving water, 27 still water. These could be combined if you can figure a way to do that, and I will show an example, which would be a waterfall into a pond or a lake. And this is the last week of assignments. Next week is week 16, last week of the semester, and it's already turned in your final. That's great because I asked for it early so we could have a virtual gallery, virtual exhibition of work, and I needed time to get that together for the month of December. So if you did not get that to me in time, it will not be included in the exhibition on the college website, gallery website, which I'll send out a link about so you can connect to it when it's actually finished. We're arranging and finalizing it now this week. But the week 16 is to complete unfinished work. It gives you a whole week to do that. And several of you have lots of assignments to finish up and complete and get to me by the end of week 16. Okay, so let's show those images. First I'll show you, it's supposed to be drawings. There's some drawings in here, but a lot of paintings. Moving water could be something like this, where it's a splash of water, or different configurations of water. The Fuji drawings here and paintings is showing waves in kind of his own way. And or waves are a good way to do moving water. Waves. Now, you want to always be conscious whenever you're drawing and painting that there's light and dark, tones, tints, and shades. That's really what's making everything happen. Depending on the colors you're choosing, if you're using paint or another way of using color, you're going to need to have a darker version of whatever color you're using to get the darker tones, like darker blue than a lighter blue, and so on with other colors. And if you're using graphite, of course, we've talked about that all semester, and you can do that by adding the darker tones, then mid-tones, and lighter tones to get full spectrum and 7 different levels of tone in between the light and the dark. And this is going to show the shape of whatever you're drawing, the light source on your subject that ultimately creates a shape, a 3D appearance on a 2-dimensional plane, your paper. So waves are a good way to do it. Running rivers, even a splash in the water where you have ripples going out. It's more wave ideas here. They're beautiful. But there's a lot of whitewash on the top of the waves, and you have the different dark and light tones, not one tone, not one tint or shade. If it's painting or graphite, or color or graphite, paint, you're going to use the darker and the lighter, and possibly blue and green mixed in, and then maybe some lighter areas where the reflection is. These are good ones to study if you're doing waves. It's a lot of different tints and shades of several colors. So in this case, I think they're using more green, blues, grays, and white with reflection of yellow in, and you have yellow greens and blue greens. All that is represented in a wave, if you're doing a wave sort of thing in a painting. To study these and look at the colors, look at where they're placed, where the whitewash is, where the blue of sky is, where the dark areas, blue or green in this, that come up to the lighter areas, that's going to show light coming through the wave. And you've added some white to, or used a lighter version of green in here, possibly turning into a yellow green, which is going to help you show the light coming through the wave. Down here, darker areas, but you have all these sort of whitewash areas that are going back and forth through the water, showing the movement. And they're thin. Some of these are very thin paint lines. That's how you're going to do the waves. I'll actually provide a video for that, for waves and moving water and then whatnot. So moving water, waves, maybe a river, maybe this idea, it can have other content in it as long as you're showing the moving water. If you're only going to do the moving water separate, if you're going to do the still water separate, there's a lot of reflection because the water is like glass. The reflections are upside down from the actual landscape or trees, water, sky and mountains shown in the water. This is all upside down, right? Yeah, so that's the reflection. It's like a mirror image. And then there is some ripples in here, but they're faint because it's actually still. If you're doing something like this, you're going to put boats in there. It's very still. It's almost like glass. And you could blur out the mirror image on the water and leave this more, have a lot more detail and be more literal with the detail. This is like blurred out in the water, except for the reflection of the boats are pretty accurate. But it's upside down, right? You have the boat up here, and then this is all upside down. It's like placing a mirror under something. So here's an idea of moving water and still water. I'll show you some more. So you got sort of a still water here, but when it comes down the little waterfall around the rock, it's moving. So then you have a lot of whitewash along with the darker parts of the water. So between the two of them, you're showing an agitated water moving by putting the light and dark tones together. And they undulate, they go back and forth. It's movement. It's agitated water. And then coming here, it's sort of moving still, dissipating, got some whitewash in there, got little bubbles and things. And then here it gets very more still, with have a little bit of a reflection from the rocks. Okay, I'm going to show some other examples of that, but going back into still water, it's really a lot of reflection. This may have some algae up here, but this is like clear, showing that tree, that rock, the sky in the water. That's how you're going to represent very still water. Okay. And then you have your lights and darks everywhere, but it's most of the time when you're showing a reflection of whatever's on the landscape and in the sky by this still water. You show that in the water upside down going the other direction. Then it's going to represent water because it's probably not that big of grass out there, right? So all these are showing something like that. Lots of reflections, but then you do have a little bit of ripple in here. So there's a little piece of dark and a little piece of light water showing the trunks and leaves on this, but they're coming over it to sort of disturbing and distorting the image of the reflection. And when you do that, you're showing them a little bit of movement in the water, but not that much. This is more still than not. But it does show more of the water in there because there's a little bit of rippling going on. Very little. It's distorting your image. It's not completely like glass, but you could have one that is, because it gets like that. That's a pretty one. Just a mirror image. And then it gets kind of lighter in the distance and darker toward you. That's going to show the distance between the two. Whenever you show a variation, the light and dark, this one's looking a little more flat compared to that, actually. But this is kind of a buffed. It's not perfect. There's a little slight bit of movement in the water where it is blurred slightly. But all these are reflection ideas. Oops, what happened there? So that's still water, okay? A lot of reflection, whether you're going to use color or graphite, you would use that reflection. Let's show waterfalls going into ponds. This is more moving water everywhere, so it's not as good. This is sort of showing it getting a little more still over here. It's not really agitated, but this is. And then you show the white and light whitewash going around and around and showing both together. If you show one and not the other, it's not going to look as agitated of water as this would. There's little places, the still water, wherever it lands in these little ponds. And then whitewash always shows, whitewash with the other dark parts of the water show the agitated water. It's really a lot of it right there. And then it has some, bits of color from the surroundings, but mostly that's all it is. Here's a graphite. So when you're in the pond, you have horizontal sort of ripple lines going through, bold shading areas. Then you have reflection, darks and lights from what's above. This is all your agitated wash, but it does have some darker areas in it. It's not completely white. There's a lot of more here. So all I did was put waterfall into pond drawings. It showed paintings too, but then here's a lot of drawings that you can get some ideas from. But this would suffice for still water, moving water in the same drawing or painting, okay? And here you have that waterfall back here, moving water. A lot of white, but there's some strips and streaks of darker going down with it, showing it's moving this way, down. Then you have the horizontal sort of ripple shade marks back and forth through the whitish water, but it's not all white. There's some darker areas in there. Okay? This one's showing it too, but over here you got very faint kind of ripples coming and wash coming down the waterfall, and then very still with a lot of reflections. But if you're painting, you're going to be reflecting what's up here. So it does have a little green in it, does have a little purple and lighter blues and light blues and dark blues, a little dark green over here. But you're trying to capture the reflection from everything around into the water, which is predominantly more blue, or could be a greenish blue. But take that into mind when you're putting the colors into this water, this still water. There's going to be darker areas closer to the shore, where the light isn't catching as much, and down here you have all the sky sort of reflecting, so you have lighter blues, and they change throughout this. Look at all the different levels of tints and shades, with greens and blues and whites and a little purple going on in here. That's what you're going to look for, and these are good examples. So I would suggest looking at these and studying them and picking something that you can use if you're going to go in the direction of using a waterfall into a pond where you're doing both. Okay? Lots of ideas here. And yeah, you could put fish in here because still water may show what's in the water, like a bunch of fish, a bunch of koi down in the water. Of course, they're not all going one direction very the same. They're going in different directions, back and forth. Some are going this way, so they're represented in sort of a vertical, tilted vertical, or a horizontal figure. You want that to be there. This is a very dark water, right? But the fish are the lighter. And then you have your whitewash. Just very little coming through. It's a very slow-moving waterfall. But that's represented in the whitewash, and then you have everything in the background, the rocks and everything. But look at all the dark and lights in the rocks. So you really want to go with your contrast here. Whatever you're using, graphite or paint, graphite's going to have the 7 different levels of tone from very light to very dark, and all those mid-tones that we talked about all semester. And, of course, you have the light and dark colors if you're going to use paint. Light and dark of each color you're using. Light version, darker version. Maybe you want to use a little black in that color or a little white in that color to make them lighter and darker. That's the basics. There's other ways to make colors light and dark, like using red and green with different colors can darken them up. It's more, I would say that's more an advanced technique. So we're not going to get into it in this class, being basic drawing. So, all right. Look at these examples. Get your own examples on Bing or Google, and look at, and this is a good one too with the deer in there. Look at the reflection. Reflection of everything tells you that's water. That's still water. You want to combine them, the waterfall and pond, or waterfall and lake idea, moving water, maybe a river or waves, or the splash idea, splashing water. I want to see darks and lights in that. Don't do this like a continuous line drawing. That's not going to represent your tones very well. Here's a drawing of agitated river water coming over little waterfalls. Water's moving. You're telling that by all the whitewash over the darker water. Dark and light areas of the water, but the whitewash is really light. So the mixture of both of those is showing that whitewash is moving water and really reflecting light on it. And then you have all the darker areas. So between the two, you have your effect of the moving water. With just one, you're not going to have that effect all that much. Okay? So get some ideas from this. That's a really nice one. Reflecting, using all those colors to reflect on the water. That's really all it is. Except for there is aspects of deeper blue and green in here in darker areas. And then you have your horizontal sort of ripples going where they could be lighter or darker that are coming through here, moving through this, but it's kind of subtle. All right, I think that's enough for now. Any questions, let me know. I'll try to post a couple of videos on drawing still and moving water, and this is the last assignment week. Next week is a makeup week. So Start gearing toward getting all prior assignments to me now. I may ask you to work on them more for a better grade, and you want that time. So if you send them to me all in the last week, you may not have time to improve something or do a little adjustment here with my suggestions. Right? So if you're looking for really good grades, get stuff in early to me so you can work on it a little more if I ask you. All right. We'll talk with you next week. That'll be the last week, and it'll be a makeup week.